Some data isn't meant to circulate, but at Mugello, one trace slipped, quietly, unintentionally, and for those who saw it, everything changed. Ferrari's Mugello test wasn't designed to raise alarms. On the surface, it looked like just another mid-season development run. 2 drivers, a few suspension tweaks, and data to gather ahead of Spa. But inside the team's technical department, something unusual happened. A file showed up in a senior engineer's inbox. The title was simple, no labels, no folders, just private driver comparison. It was time-stamped at 2:14 in the morning, quietly routed, likely through a restricted channel. Most people wouldn't have opened it, but someone did, and what they saw wasn't just a standard comparison between Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton. It was Hamilton versus himself. Telemetry from his Mugello laps, overlaid with data from the W11 back in 2020, the car many still consider the most dominant in modern F1 history. This wasn't a chase for lap time. It was deeper than that. It was a message. Hamilton hadn't come to test upgrades. He recreated exact conditions from the W11's prime, replicating inputs, corner speeds, entry angles. What he left behind wasn't ordinary driver feedback. It was a blueprint. Or maybe a warning, because when the engineer reviewed that overlay, it became clear this wasn't about simple development, it was about contrast. The SF25 didn't speak the same way the W11 did. It didn't trust, it didn't yield, it hesitated. That file shifted everything. The trace was from July 20th, just 4 days before Spa. That was the day the SF25 stopped being measured against other cars and started being measured against a ghost. Mugello isn't a place that allows hiding. With its fast, old-school corners and no forgiveness, it forces clarity. The car either works or it doesn't. Ferrari had brought a rear suspension update to settle the rear end through medium-speed corners. On paper, a small geometry tweak to reduce mid-corner unpredictability. Nothing drastic. But Hamilton asked for something different. Extra laps, solo, late in the afternoon when attention was scattered. Not an unusual request from a veteran. But the engineer reviewing the session afterward didn't find typical feedback. He found something far more deliberate. Each throttle modulation, steering input, and brake trace was calculated. It mirrored his old Mercedes laps with eerie precision. When the overlay appeared, it stunned the room. The engineer expected typical comments about tyre wear or brake feel. Instead, what he got was brutal clarity. The SF25 wasn't unstable. It was quiet, too quiet. Hamilton would later summarize the problem with one line: "It feels like I'm talking to myself in this car." That sentence landed harder than any lap time. The engineer had defended the SF25 all year. He believed in its concept, backed its setup direction, and pushed its philosophy. But this trace wasn't opinion. It was undeniable. Steering torque under load came late. Rotation lagged. There was always a beat, a breath, between command and response. The car didn't misbehave, but it didn't dance either. The W11 was known for its live feedback. Hamilton would ask, and the car would answer. Instantly, proportionally, with total trust. The SF25, by comparison, responded like a muted echo. One engineer said it softly: "It's like we've been tuning earplugs, not instruments." That moment broke something open. No one tried to defend it anymore. The team stopped trying to fix a surface problem and began reimagining the car altogether. Back at Maranello, the urgency was immediate. The Mugello debrief turned into something more like a war room. Hamilton didn't raise his voice. He didn't place blame. Instead, he gave direct instructions, not suggestions, but imperatives. Sharper steering bite, more immediate rack response, servo assistance tuned to high-speed confidence, recognition of load shifts, especially mid-corner. Feedback so precise, only a handful of drivers in the world could even articulate it, let alone demand it. Some engineers flinched. Ferrari had always been about adapting the driver to the car, not the other way around. But Hamilton didn't come to adapt. He came to win. And when silence stretched across the room, he broke it with just one sentence: "If it doesn't talk back, it doesn't deserve the pace." By nightfall, a prototype geometry map was already circulating. Steering rack revisions were underway. A process that usually took weeks had collapsed into hours. The next morning, Leclerc tested the revised setup. At first glance, everything looked better. The rear felt planted, the times were up. But inside the cockpit, something was off. It wasn't fluid. It wasn't familiar. It was too sharp, almost like the car was thinking for him. When he returned, his voice was calm, but the words were loaded. "It's faster. but feels like it's second-guessing me." That single comment told the full story. Leclerc had spent years absorbing Ferrari's imperfections, bending his style around delay and compromise. Now, the car had changed. It wasn't tuned to his sensitivity anymore. It was speaking a new language, one with a British accent. Inside Ferrari, there was division. Some engineers wanted balance, a setup to suit both drivers. Others saw what was really happening. This wasn't about individual feel, it was about evolution. The SF25 was no longer suggesting. It was obeying. No more collaboration, only command. Even Hamilton's engineer was surprised, not by the changes themselves, but by the speed. At other teams, this level of revision would take meetings, debates, approvals. But this time, July 20th was the test. July 21st, the maps were revised. By July 22nd, the KD prototype for a new steering rack had been signed off. What normally took a month had been done in 72 hours. Someone inside said it clearly. This isn't feedback. This is leadership. Hamilton never once mentioned Leclerc. He never compared. He focused only on the machine. He didn't repeat himself. He escalated. With tone, not volume. Calm, focused, measured. His engineer said it best. He doesn't vent. He diagnoses. Just weeks earlier, Silverstone had been filled with radio frustration and emotional outbursts. But now, Ferrari was seeing something different. Not louder, sharper, not emotional, surgical. The final sim before Spa told the whole story. The revised SF25 hit the track. The car rotated on command. The rear held under pressure. Steering response was clean, linear, proportional. The data was clear. And so was Hamilton's one-line summary. It's not perfect, but now at least it listens. The engineer pulled up the overlay. The SF25 was tracing the same arcs as the W11. Nearly identical. Not a theory. Not a wish. Real. No one cheered. No high fives. Just silence. Because for the first time all season, the car wasn't just reacting. It was responding. To him. As the garage lights dimmed and Hamilton walked out quietly, no media followed. No grin, no fanfare, just presence. And somewhere inside the factory, the engineer who first opened that anonymous file finally said what no one else had dared to. The scary part isn't that he knows what he needs, it's that now we do too.